All right. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming to listen to my talk about SwiftUI. I am a fanboy of Android and Google products, so it takes a lot for me to actually work on an Apple product willingly. Um, no, I do like using Mac OS, being that it's a Unix system. Yeah, I'm not fond of working on iPhone projects. The most I normally touch iPhone projects is by looking through the source code when I'm porting them to Android, which is what I've spent roughly a third of my life doing. So just a quick little note. Sorry for my voice. I do sound a little weird. I completely lost my voice on Sunday and I'm still in recovery, but I should be fine to talk to you today. Let's start with a little bit of an introduction of who am I. I studied astrophysics at university and somehow stumbled into a career as an apps developer. I had about 10 years industry experience. I first started developing Android apps in 2011. And over the years, I've specialized in Android, but I've also experimented with all sorts of new technologies. I'm an expert on Kinect and HoloLens, as well as dabbled in iPhone development, web development, server-side stuff, game dev, augmented reality, teaching, all sorts of things. I would definitely describe myself as an all-round nerd. So if you're looking for more nerdy friends to get a beer with, hit me up. I am also starting a new Dungeons and Dragons campaign soon. So if you're looking to play, hit me up. My cat has more followers on Facebook than I do, and there's a nice photo of him looking smug about it. But most importantly and relevant to this talk is I hate dealing with iOS apps. I already said this, yeah, all the provisioning profiles and the random compiler errors, signing certificates, and approval process. I don't like it.
I will second that. I hate that the most.
Yeah, but I loved using SwiftUI. Gave it a go recently and absolutely loved it. I found it a really great UI framework. As much as I love Android XML layouts, they're my bread and butter. I had no trouble building a couple of apps using SwiftUI. In today's talk, I'll be going through my first project that I used in SwiftUI. But since then, I've actually been using it for a commercial project as well. So the mission, if I choose to accept it, was that I had built an app for Android that was designed to help people with mental health. Sort of a mindfulness exercise in forgiving oneself for their mistakes. Basically, when you make a mistake, you add it to the app. The list is intentionally not editable. If once you've entered an item, you cannot remove it or edit it. The best you can do is add another entry for the mistake of making a typo. But once a year, it prompts you to forgive yourself and erase the list. When you click the Forgive Yourself button, it does prompt you. Are you sure that you are ready to forgive yourself? There is even a help section in the app that not only includes instructions for the app, but includes a link to contact Beyond Blue, because some people might need a little assistance in being able to forgive themselves for their mistakes. One mistake that a lot of people make, about 50% of Australian population, is that they choose to get iPhones. So I wanted to make sure that my app was across both platforms. So I had to dig into Xcode and start making an iPhone app. And SwiftUI is relatively new. So you can see here. This is the code that is generated when you create a new Swift project. It's an app with a content view, and the content view simply says "Hello World" with some padding. This centers the text on the screen. So yeah, it's very easy to get started. So the first step I had to do was to build the basic version of my UI. I wanted a list of mistakes. So what I did was I built I set a struct to store mistakes, which would have an ID as well as some text. The text being whatever the user enters, and the ID just being a random arbitrary string that is used as for the list. So SwiftUI is, I guess you'd call it reactive. Basically, you annotate your state variables with the @state annotation, as you can see I've done here with mistakes and mistake. So mistake being the text input from the user, and mistakes being the list of existing mistakes. And the body property is where you build your UI in SwiftUI. And it's a very elegant, declarative sort of domain-specific language, even of how this is declared. So you can see here I've got a navigation view. Inside it, I've got a vertical stack. And in that vertical stack, I've first got the text field, then an add button, a forgive yourself button, and a list. So this is aiming to recreate this UI that I had from the Android app. And using closures, I am able to program what I want each of these buttons to do. So the add button does a rudimentary data entry validation. I later changed it to actually disable the button if the input was blank. And if you have entered some input, then it adds it to the list and clears the input field for you. The button to forgive yourself, it just erases the list at this point. So this was the first iteration, a proof of concept even. And then you can see that the list is built using a reference to the list of model objects, a property that accesses as an ID from those model objects. That's the ID I mentioned earlier in the struct. And then also a closure that constructs a view out of that model object. In this case, simply a text view that displays the associated text. Now, this is all well and good, but this is in-memory storage. So as soon as you would restart the app, everything that you'd entered would be gone. So the next step was to add persistence. And I found this actually very easy, linking with SwiftUI. So this code itself is not specific to SwiftUI. It is just some iOS code. And I used user defaults to store an array of mistakes. I did actually receive feedback from a user on Reddit who said that his phone might run out of memory from all the mistakes he makes in his life. So I have also looked at compressing the data. I think there's a feature branch for the Android version that does actually gzip the data when it stores it. Just for those of you who need to record some extra mistakes. In terms of linking this with the previous code,
is the project open source? Or?
Yes, this is. Yeah, I'll come to that.
Yeah,
It is actually BSD licensed, so you're welcome to view the source code. Uh, so yeah, to link up the persistence, I added this call to load mistakes here instead of the placeholder data, and added a call to save mistakes here in the add function. Next thing I needed to do was add a little bit more detail, some extra screens, some alerts. So you can see here how navigation is configured in SwiftUI. You use the navigation link class, where you provide it with a destination as well as a label. You can also link it to a state Boolean variable, which will enable and disable the button for you. As you can see, I've done here with the link to oh, actually, sorry, sorry, I got that wrong. Is active does not enable and disable the button. It activates the actual transition. This is what I've done here with the alert. So if you do select yes, when it says would you like to configure a notification, it sets this flag to true, which triggers the navigation links is active binding, and that will actually navigate to that screen for you without you having to click on the notifications menu item. Whereas for help, you've got to click the button. This prompt is actually set up to appear if you A, don't have notifications enabled, B, are adding your first item to the list. So it doesn't bug you every time you add an item, but when you add your first item to a list, this would also happen if you were to clear the list and then add a new item to that now empty list, if you had not already configured notifications. Because as I said before, that part of the point of the app is that at least once a year, you should reflect on your mistakes and try to live a better life. A lot of people do this as a New Year's resolution. In my faith, we have a holiday called Yom Kippur, where we spend the day reflecting on our past year's mistakes. In fact, some people, as a ritual, will write those mistakes down on pieces of paper and burn them, so that those mistakes are in the past. This app aimed to be the digital version of that, but also be acceptable to non-Jews. So here's a bit more complicated code. So this is the notifications screen. So this needed custom bindings because I wanted to not only bind the data, but I wanted to respond with custom code when the data was changed. So there was a toggle switch, as well as a date time picker. So you could set whenever you wish to have the notification appear. And here, it has some text with some suggestions, because there's lots of times in the year where, especially after COVID, where it's good to reflect on the past year. So you can see I've got in terms of my UI, I've got a VStack again, where I've got that toggle and the date picker, and they are bound to these custom bindings. So the both of them call through to this configure notification function, and the enabling notification switch also stores the ID for the notification when it is enabled, and removes both that and the time when it is disabled. Because the default time, if you haven't set one, is to set the notification for New Year's Day of the following year. I thought that was the most common for people, as well as calculating dates from the lunar calendars is a lot more complicated. I'd rather the user do that themselves, though I will accept any PRs that add that functionality, or I might do it myself if I get bored. I haven't included the code for the configure notification because it's not relevant to SwiftUI. It's all standard iOS code related to local notifications. But as I mentioned earlier, the source code is available on GitHub. So next step is the stuff I hate. Things I hate dealing with: signing certificates, provisioning profiles. I also do not currently have an Apple dev account, and that costs $100 a year. And man, I don't have that kind of money sitting around. I need to spend it on more important things like partying and food. So I was in a bit of a pickle because, I mean, my app was free. I didn't want to put ads or charge people for this because I just genuinely want to help people. Because this is an app I needed myself, and I thought other people could benefit from it. So I found a friend, phoned a friend. I don't know how many of you have seen this picture before, but if you're active in the iOS developer community, you might be familiar with Tim Oliver. He's a mate of mine from Perth, and given that the source code was licensed under the BSD license, there's no reason that he couldn't take my source code and publish it himself, which I encouraged him to do because I didn't want to sign up for my own account. Yeah, he was actually kind enough to do a few little tweaks just to touch up the app to make sure it got through Apple's approval process. And yeah, great success. It's now on the store. So if you search for Forgive Yourself on iTunes, App Store, that you should be able to find it. Or follow the links that I'll have at the end of this talk. And here you can see some screenshots of the UI that I showed you the code for earlier. You've got the navigation controller with the two navigation links in the top. There's a text entry field. There's a list. There's a submit button. Here's the notification configuration screen. And then there's that little alert notification. That's not one I actually showed you. That's the other one. That's the "Are you sure you've forgiven yourself?" which is perhaps a little too deep for an app, but it's an important question because you shouldn't erase the list until in your heart you've properly forgiven yourself for the mistakes on the list. All right, just to wrap up, here are the links that I've been talking about. If you go to mens.ly/forgive, you can see this little landing page that I've made. I've also recorded some videos for both Android and iPhone demonstrating the app. This includes links to download on Google Play and the App Store, as well as links to the source code on GitHub. Here is a direct link to the repository on GitHub. If you leave off the -iOS, you will get the Android version. You can email me at mens.ly. There's too many Michaels in the world, so people usually call me Mensley. And from that page, you can access my LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that if you're interested in following me. Though do be warned, my homepage is rather flatulent. It has a JavaScript called fart scroll. Also, give it a little while before you go and visit it. I messed with the DNS settings at 5 a.m. this morning and mucked it up. I'm currently waiting for the fix to propagate through the DNS network. So you might not be able to actually access my webpage just at the moment. But the GitHub is still good to go, and so is my email. So feel free to contact me, and I can point you in the direction of my other social channels. All right, any questions from the audience?
No, great stuff. I was wondering how you got the app free on the App Store.
Yeah. Like I said, phoned a friend. Tim's a great guy. I don't know how much iOS dev you've done, but he's actually published a number of open source libraries that are very helpful for iOS and used in some pretty major projects.
Sorry, I didn't get his name. Tim Oliver, was it?
Tim Oliver.
Cool.
So if you also hear the name Tom Oliver, people do often get his name wrong. Mostly because he's back in the day where everything had abbreviation, it had like a prefix for iOS apps. He used his initials, T.O., Tim Oliver. But people saw that and thought his name was Tom. Anyway. Well, if there's no other questions, I guess that's me for this evening.